Hi, okay, here's my preliminary predictions for California. We have professional responsibility, of course, right? And in the last 12 years, they've tested it 23 times. So all these ones that were highly tested, they were tested last time. So then that leaves us with torts, remedies, which they're not going to do a tort remedy. So probably contracts remedies. And then they just did con law, so real property next. That could also be a remedies too. I've seen that before. And then let's do Civ Pro, maybe even California Civ Pro. And then for the wild cards, I'd say like a Crim Pro, and then Crim, like they'll have like one call that talks about criminal law of some sort. And then we'll do wills this time since community property was just tested. Maybe even trust too, I guess. Can do wills / trust. Business associations and corporations. So we have how many MBE subjects? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 California subject. But that's why the Civ Pro could be California this time. Hi. Okay, so going further into professional responsibility, we see that here, and looking at the selected answer, we see fee agreements, gifts, conflict of interest, competence, paying witnesses, perjury. Let's look at the exam before that, July 2023. We have professional responsibility, and we can see it's a corporate kind of question. Who's the duty owed to, and that type of thing. Now let's look at the next, February 23, and we have another corporate. So 2 corporates in a row. So I don't think they'll test corporate again. Okay, this is commingling client funds, contingency fee agreements. So more of a money fee thing. So 2 corporate money fee thing. This was a crossover with evidence. Okay, criminal. This is turning over evidence. Criminal. So maybe criminal will be again. Yeah, I think could be very well a criminal. So that's what I think about that. Could be crossed over with evidence as well. So I think this one will be a criminal, another criminal, since we've had 2 of these. Or I think it was a commingling. Now let's go to torts. It wasn't tested last time, but it's the time before that, yes. Okay, product liability. It was nuisance. Product liability, then nuisance, then negligence. Negligence. This was a pandemic year, so torts here. Defamation in February 2020. So I would say maybe defamation again. Let's see, let's go beyond that. Animal. So I would say look for animal or defamation. I remember this one. Okay, I'll do remedy contracts. So February, it wasn't tested at all. Let's see, July, it was tested, contract remedies. So let's go backwards some more. February 23, no remedies at all. July 22, don't see remedies here either. February 22, we have a tort nuisance remedy. So that's kind of like property, right? Property remedy. July 21, no remedy. Contract remedies in February 21. This was the abbreviated pandemic exam. Contract remedies again. Yeah, I think it's going to be a contract remedy again, which I already wrote here. Okay, so let's see what they have for real property, what they've tested and what they haven't. Okay, so as far as real property, let's see what they've done in the past few years. Oh no, they did test in February. It was a landlord tenant. They missed July, and then in February, they tested as a landlord tenant. Here's the issues. Let's go back further. So before that was February 2021. Yeah, February 21. They did it twice in a row. What did they talk about in February 21? It was a covenant. Okay, covenants. Let's see what they did before that. Adverse possession. So adverse possession's looking good. They haven't done that for a while. See when they did that before that. 219. Landlord tenant. I would say watch out for adverse possession. Okay, and that covers the 5 essays. Let's do some wildcard action. Okay, so find it's easier to look at this to see what they've done. So usually it's a crossover. They do both. So 723 and then twice in a row in 22 and 21. So here there was murder and burglary and some Miranda. There's some more Miranda. Fruit of the poisonous tree. Automobile exception. Murder. So what do we have? Miranda, murder, larceny. So in October 2020, pandemic exam, and then again on 19th. Burglary, 7/19. Okay, search and seizure, listening device, fruit of the poisonous tree, robbery. Okay, it looks to me, I would say look into this exam, which is fruit of the poisonous tree, listening device. So search, and then a little robbery in there. Let's look under wills and trust now. So this is a lot easier. Last time they tested was 7/22 and then also 7/21. Holographic wills, crossover with community property, will formalities. And if you notice, these are both July exams, which we're going into a July exam, so for what that's worth. We have more will formation, testamentary capacity, where capacity was brought into issue if the testator was the test to make sure they knew what was going on. Holographic will again. Let's go back further. 219, crossed over with community property. This is February. Intestate succession. This one looks good to test. Intestate and trust formalities. Okay, so last wild card is Business Association Corpse, 7/22, 10/20. I remember this one was about dividends, and 7/22, it's about voter rights, so don't expect that one again. Partnerships, but it was tested recently, so I would say let's see what this one is. 217, Business Association. Piercing the corporate veil, alter ego. This one looks good. I predict that as a subject. Okay, so that's it. Please comment if you have any opinion on anything, and I'll try and respond to the comments. All right, good luck, best wishes. Feel free to reach out. And then the second is torts, right? Because contracts was tested last time and it skipped this time. So they usually alternate between contracts and torts. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's why I went with torts this time. And then I went back and I haven't seen product liability for a while, and I haven't seen nuisance for a while, and I haven't seen negligence for a while, and negligence with an animal, and defamation. I kind of went a little wide on that, but
Yeah, I think it's important to remember as far as torts, there's so many areas that can be tested on torts. And so it's important that when you talk about nuisance, that we do discuss the remedy, which is injunction. So that would be like equitable relief. So when you're thinking about torts, just in a nuisance, one of the things that can pop up is just it is an injunction to the nuisance. So as always in torts, you always want to discuss defenses. As far as the animals, that is the category of strict liability and animal bites. So remember that. And then also you want to incorporate, if you do get animal on property, is someone who's coming onto the property, remember what status they are as far as invite a licensee, are they a trespasser, and the duties and know the elements for that to throw into the torts discussion.
so professional responsibility, getting back to that, I haven't seen fee agreements for a while.
Yeah, fee agreements could come up. And I think the biggest thing is to remember that the fee agreement needs to be reasonable. Typically in California, you always want to have those fee agreements in writing. And if they're anything shared, you want to make sure that you disclose that to the client, where it's not going to adjust the price of the fee agreement down to the client.
Right. And I think I wrote the corporate setting is it would have been criminal fee agreements.
Yeah, typically the fee agreements, so they do civil, so maybe PR has to encompass a criminal matter. A lot of times that's like conflict of interest. So if like
Defendants.
two defendants are coming in, or there's the potential or foreseeable conflict of interest, there's no the conflict of interest on those. And then also, I don't think sometimes California will test when an attorney comes out and talks to the media and casting a bad light on the court or the other party. So that could come up as well, is to when you're making public comments that they're not adverse or they don't cast a bad light onto the court or the judge.
Right. Or it's like, I forget the wording they say, but it's something like along the lines of like a public trial.
Correct.
Like it becomes, if you start making these comments to the media, then the public starts to decide whether they're guilty or not. and then it necessarily kind of can influence, even though the jury is supposed to be sequestered.
Yeah, basically, you don't want to say anything that could potentially prejudice the case, especially your defendant. And I think that's why they have these laws that are in place. That's why they want to test the bar examiners, because anything that it's against public policy. You want to have everybody to have a fair trial, including the defendant. So if there's a prosecutor that makes comments in the public that's going to cause prejudice to the defendant, then that could prejudice the case. And on the other side, it's the defense attorney has to be careful of what he says against the prosecutor and the judge as to prejudice the case, to where you always want the jury to come in with a clear mind so that they are not biased.
Exactly. There was one other thing about the criminal setting is who pays for representation. Sometimes you'll have like somebody else paying for the representation, and then they'll like try and plea bargains, let's say, and not telling the actual defendant about the plea bargain, right? And just telling the person that paid for the legal services.
Yeah, an attorney has a duty to inform the client at all times. And so sometimes when it gets tricky, because you could have a third party paying the attorney bill, but just because a third party is paying does not give them right to discuss access the case. You would need a waiver, you would need consent from the client, because ultimately, no matter who pays, an attorney still owes the duty to the client. So you have to make sure that if there is a third party paying, there's some sort of consent, typically written consent from the individual who the attorney's represented, to disclose some of the information. Otherwise, that's a violation of attorney-client privilege. You often see that in criminal cases because you have one person who is incarcerated. Sometimes it's difficult to have the means for them to get out and talk to the attorney. So oftentimes they'll rely on a family member, a third party, to be the mediator and communicate to the attorney. And that person, a lot of times, will also pay for the attorney. So it's important to get consent from the client to discuss, even though there's a third party payee.
Right. Then going down to contract remedies.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you have contract, you always want to think remedies. Sometimes you can get a full remedies. Other times you can get contracts. I believe recently they did tests on the UCC. And so I expect they're not going to test on the UCC, but you might have maybe a service contract and you're going to have to give a full analysis of all those remedies.
Right. And when they do a service contract, I haven't seen it lately, but they implicate you can't get specific performance on a services contract, right? Because
Right, because under the 13th Amendment, you have involuntary servitude, right?
exactly.
So that creates a challenge to get specific performance. So that's one of the challenges of a service contract.
Right. And since we haven't seen it lately, or I can't recall when it was last tested, that might come up. So
Yeah, and sometimes what they like to do is they like to incorporate maybe a service contract, and then also they'll be intertwined with it. It'll be like goods intertwined with the service contract. And so it's important to separate the two at the onset and figure out what is what.
right. Next one, I guess, is real property. I think we predicted it last time and it never came true, but we were talking about takings and adverse possession.
Yeah, adverse possessions and taking is a favorite of the California bar exam. And I do believe, as of recent, I think the last thing they tested were leases. I think it was lease agreements. And so they haven't.
February 2023. So we're
Right.
going to be 2 administrations where they haven't tested it. So it seems pretty likely.
Yes, California, as we know, they love to test on basically equitable servitudes, right? Real covenants. But we haven't seen takings in a while. And I think that could come up because of what has happened, and also during COVID. We're out of COVID now, but one of the things with the takings is whether the government could shut down businesses. And a lot of times you'll see in bar exams, you'll see that will be related to some of the ongoing issues in the news. So takings could come up again. Also, California loves to test deeds, the type of deeds and deed transfers. So that's another area that could come up as well.
And then I have CivPro. I don't know why I didn't write anything for it.
I believe when you had talked about it, you had stated that you thought it was going to be like California Civ Pro. Uh,
Okay.
because I don't think that really has been tested. There's been like a couple questions, but I don't believe we've ever had a full essay on California Civ Pro yet.
Right. And it's gone 2 administrations since the last CivPro, just like the real property as well. So it's up there. So California CivPro, they have Demers.
Yep.
They have, what else is California specific?
I know for a while people were talking about slap, anti-slap.
Yes, anti-slap, slap. Exactly.
And then the distinction between like a cross complaint versus like a counter complaint. California has certain distinctions.
So then the wild cards, I did 3 of them, would be like a criminal law. I haven't seen Fruit of the Poisonous Tree for a while. So Crim Pro and then Search. For me, I think it'd be more of a Crim Pro with Fruit of the Poisonous Tree and Search.
Yes, and the Fourth Amendment is so broad. California bar examiners love to test it as well. And that's one of the things they love to incorporate is doctrine of fruit of the poisonous tree. And then also the various exceptions to the fruit of the poisonous tree. I believe there's about 4 exceptions. So it's important to go in knowing that and then knowing your laws on search and warrantless searches.
Okay. And then next wild card is wills and trusts. I haven't seen intestate succession for a while. Your per capita, your all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the subject that everybody loves. I think we haven't seen trust for a while. And I would think that it's right to come up, especially a trustee's duties. Sometimes the duty to basically invest, duty of care, and just know the trustee's duties. A lot of times they do test on that when it comes to trust. Also, the big issue is when it comes to beneficiaries and disclaiming a beneficiary's interest. How does that affect the overall trust? And then also, a lot of times we see as wills gets incorporated with trust. So,
okay. And then the next subject is corporations. And I haven't seen for a while the piercing of the corporate veil topic. I can't remember the last time, but I could search it up here.
yeah, piercing of the corporate veil is a very important topic. It hasn't come up, but what we have noticed is that California has been frequently testing business corporations, and it seems as of late, it seems to be more of a favorite topic. Whereas before, testing was very few and far between. It also seems like they've gone away from testing the 10b6 and the securities law. It could have come up, but I do believe that Business Association Corporation is another favorite that they've been testing a lot more frequent. So during this test, I would also be ready for that.
Right. I just looked it up with the app. The last time they test piercing the corporate veil was in February 2017. Before that, it was February 2015.
That has been in the news. It's just the different ways that the corporate veil can be pierced, such as when you start a company, it's underfunded. And when another corporation is working as an alter ego of another. So make sure to know all of those issues of how to pierce the corporate veil.
Yes. Okay. Good. I guess that's it. I really want to thank you so much, Walt, for your time. And
You guys feel free to leave a comment and we'll try to reach out and answer any questions you can, or if there's a topic that you may want some clarification on, we'd be willing to help.
yeah, thanks so much, Walt. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.